Can you hear me?
All right. Hello and welcome. Thank you for joining to the Complexity Weekend 2021 Heartbeat. I'm Daniel. I'm one of the co-organizers for this month. And while I adjust the live stream, Lucas, why don't you introduce yourself? And thanks so much for organizing this month.
Hello, I'm very glad to be here. So, my name is Lucas. I am from Brazil, and this is my first time co-organizing the Heartbeat. This is actually my second Heartbeat, and yeah, I'm very excited to be here.
Awesome.
Hope you all have fun.
Cool. Well, I'm going to put the slides up on the stream. And then, Lucas, let's just walk through the slides and give everyone a welcome and an introduction before we have most of the heartbeat in our interactive gather space. Okay, so here we are on the second slide. In this introduction from the organizers, we're just going to briefly talk and give a welcome to Complexity Weekend, and then we'll talk a little bit more specifically about what we're going to be doing this weekend. So we can kind of start from the top with Complexity Weekend. Welcome to our community of practice. How did we get here, and who are we, and what are we doing here? Well, initial conditions are very important for complex systems. So here's a little bit about ours. Our first Complexity Weekend was in person in downtown San Francisco in 2019. So here's a picture from that event. And while we were planning for our second hackathon, which is what we called it at that point, we realized that we were going to have to do it online. And that ended up being really blessing and an opportunity because we were able to connect with a global audience and participatory community really around complexity. So that first online weekend was great in May 2020. And then we had a second online weekend in October 2020. And also between these two, we had a bunch of heartbeats. We're now heading into our fourth complexity weekend, which will be online, and that's the May 2021 cohort, which many of you are already registered for. So just if you haven't already, you can go over to complexityweekend.com and check out the participant registration for the May 2021 cohort and also learn a little bit about some of our facilitators. Multiple representations are really important for complex systems as well. So here's another way to view our community. And there's a bunch of roles in our community. Lucas, do you want to maybe give some overall thoughts just on the community structure, or what did you see in this that had you come in from being a participant through that heartbeat there into an event organizer?
So, as I said, my first heartbeat was the last month's one, and I really got interested to the event and to complexity. And for me, the best way to learn about something about complexity is by really getting involved, and because you are able to get the big picture about the event and understand what are people's interests and why they are here in complexity. And yeah, I'm the kind of person who really likes to, contribute and be active in a community and build a community. And as a international relations student, this for me is a playground because you just have people from all over the world, and yeah, it's very fun to, connect with all of you.
Cool. And just to sort of summarize this picture, the biggest circle here is our participation circle, and that includes everyone. And there's two ways that people tend to enter being a participant. The first is the monthly heartbeat event. So that's where you're at or listening to right now. And then also there are the biannual, so twice a year, cohort-based weekends. And so these are real cohort-based programs where we'll get to know a lot of the other participants in the cohort, and there's a more significant pre-weekend element than the heartbeat, which is kind of just drop in. And then from being a participant, there's a few ways to go. One aspect that we'll talk about is just teams, and the teams are inside, outside, and on the interface with Complexity Weekend. And then also we have event specific roles like being an organizer or a facilitator or an associate or supporter who provide support in various ways. And facilitating and organizing, it's an event specific role. So anyone who wants to step up or into doing that, we're really happy to find you a time to make it work. Here's another representation of the community, which is sort of a plot through time. And on the y-axis is like the community energy line. And it has its own oscillations. It has bumps for the heartbeats on a monthly basis. And then those weekends twice a year are like a big high energy time when there's a lot of synchronous activity. And then in the background, this yellow line is you and your team, you and your complexity journey, whatever it is for you. And so we're just organizing on this pace in the background and being there to structure and scaffold you and your teams and you and your relationships, however it makes sense. Let's talk a little bit about who we are as participants. And right off the bat, there's so many ways in which we can say that we have diversity of participation, but two of the key dimensions or two of the key axes are here. So on the left side is a response that people had to the question, what is your familiarity with complexity? And we always say that complexity is just such a big area and you could study your whole life and not have even gone down every rabbit hole. So we're all learning by doing together. But that being said, some of us might have more or less or different familiarity with complexity. And so what this histogram is showing is that there's a few people who are at the high end of familiarity, and there's many people who are in the introductory and in the middle phases of complexity. So if you ever look around and you're thinking, wow, these people know a lot about complexity, or I can't believe that this person with this background or experience is here working with me on this team, it's all good because we're all just in this sort of bathtub middle region where we're all just learning by doing together. And so that's the background and complexity question. And then on the right side is for the registration of participants for the May 2021 cohort, which is well over 120 participants so far. And we're coming from more than 40 countries and all time zones. So that really sets the constraints and the opportunities for how we organize and for how we connect. Lucas, any thoughts on like either the left side about familiarity or on the sort of international component?
Yeah, for me, it's very interesting getting together, like people from all over the world. We can see that we basically have all continents together. And yeah, like for the future, I think it's going to be very nice, like bring more and more people. So everyone is welcome to invite friends and people that you believe that is going to be interested to complexity and our cohort.
Nice. Here's just a few word clouds that we made to highlight the idea that diverse perspectives are key for Complexity Weekend. And it's in response to the question, what best describes your sector or background? And what are you looking to get out of Complexity Weekend, Community of Practice? And during the Jamboard, we'll be able to interact a little bit more with these topics. But the big sort of picture is that we come from so many different sectors, and also that there's, as Sean is always willing to point out, there's this long tail. There's a lot of things that we share, and then we each bring these sort of rare long tail perspectives and skills. And sometimes it's by having some shared understanding and some shared background, for example, in complexity or design or systems thinking, and then connecting that to our domain specific expertise or the specific skills or the perspective or the views that we have. So that's pretty cool to see. And then also on the what you're looking to get out of Complexity Weekend, we'll interact with that more on the Jamboard, but just know that whatever you're looking for, hopefully there's going to be someone else there who's looking to either share that quest with you or help you out. So Lucas, maybe just at whatever pace you want, maybe take us through the next slides, like what is bringing us all together here, and then how should we go about that?
All right. So yeah, so that leads us to what brings us together here. So first of all, I would like to say that our core values and purposes are not set in rock, and everyone is welcome to. We have a shared document that people can just comment and give their ideas and perceptions about what is the purpose and values of complexity. And for now, I'm just going to go through a brief introduction of our core values. And as I said, if you are interested, you can go to the document with the full content. So starting here, we want people with shared purpose and interested in complex science. And it doesn't matter if you are a beginner or an advanced level. And you just being interested and just wanting to apply and communicate and tell other people about complexity is the point. And a desire to have impact on co-creative teams and improve our community of practice through feedback, participation, and peer mentorship. And yeah, like I said, there are people with a more advanced level in complexity, and what really makes the community is, like advanced people, just helping people with who are starting, and for the ones who are just starting, as me, don't be afraid. You are in the right place. And core values and desire to develop a community. So here is a co-designed cohort community. So we expect from everyone to help us to develop Complexity Weekend.
Awesome. Well said, Lucas. Thanks for sharing that. And
And
similarly, on collective purpose, so maybe I'll read them and then you can give a thought. Again,
yeah,
not set in stone, as you just said, but three of our sort of key distilled purposes are that we learn complexity science by doing, we serve through deep time, and then we include to innovate. Diversity is key. So, what's a thought there, or what's something in there that resonates with you?
yeah, like we learn complexity science by doing is just because complexity is a very complex thing. There are so many things, so many sites, and so many you know, things related to complexity. And when you are actually in a community in which everyone is collaborating about complexity, doesn't matter in which background you have, I think it just helps us understand the main thing about complexity, and as well inclusion and diversity. For me, diversity is the key thing for innovation. So in order to get ideas, in order to ideate, I think it's very important that we have people from all backgrounds, from different perspectives, and uh, yeah, different experiences. So yeah, that's our main purpose. One of our purpose is to bring people together.
Awesome. For our core values, again, I'll just read them and then you can give a thought. Complexity Weekend is itself a complex system. Education is active. We learn complexity science by doing. Teamwork makes the dream work. Participation means accessibility and inclusion for all. Respect is key, and then step up and be brave. So what's the thought on that?
Yeah, the first one is one of my favorites. Like complex weekend is itself a complex system, and yeah, like I said, complexity is something that I think it's hard someone that is going to knows 100% about complexity. And I mean, complexity weekend, we are just we learn as we do it. And yeah, that's why uh, complex weekend, it's a very a complex system. uh, and step up and be brave, just being brave to work in teams, and you know go through barriers, and uh, uh, how do I say it, and being able to expand your thoughts about a topic, thinking in a way that you have never thought before. So yeah, that's what I would say.
Cool. And also, I just want to come back to the collective purpose. Michaela, who's going to be a facilitator, which we'll get to in just a few minutes, she asked in the live chat, what do we mean by serve through deep time? It's actually, Lucas, we were just talking about that earlier this morning. And it's an aspiration that when we want to do systems design and interventions and systems and innovations, that we want to think about the before, the during, and the after. We don't just want to make a perturbation and walk away. We want to think about how we're around as a community for a long time. We're planning to, as organizers and facilitators, be there for the participants through deep time and be there for each other through long time periods. But also that when we think about the actual innovations that we want to make in whichever area, whatever they look like, that those should be in service of deep time. So if you want to make a product, let's not just end at the sale. We want to think beyond that to the interventions that are being made in the system. And that's related to complex systems ideas like multiple timescales, and also about interventions and their effects on systems and how that could be nonlinear and kind of bifurcate the system into one way or another. So I hope that addresses it. Lucas, any other thoughts on deep time, or what do you think that means?
I mean, for me, deep time is really about, like as a complex system, a system is always changing. So if you just want to work on a system in a short term, it's not going to be effective. We really need to have to follow the system as the system changes and flows. And if you really want to have a impact, I think we need to follow the system. And
Nice.
yeah,
Here's just a few guidelines, which are always also evolving. Just adopt a complexity thinking mindset. Communication is key, and that's thinking about multiple levels of communication with yourself, relationships like one to ones, and also your teams and your small group conversations. Embrace technology, but know its limits. So use good audio and visual etiquette. Just know that somebody else might have a little bit of lag or they might have some other difference in their setup. So just bear with people and work with them. Full participation while appreciating diverse abilities. So, however, somebody is showing up, that's how they're going to show up. And then reach out on the edges and stay involved. Any thoughts on the guidelines there, Lucas?
yeah, like adopt a complex thinking mindset is basically, even though you don't fully understand about complexity, you can, just change your mindset for what you already know. So me, for example, I'm already, using a complex mindset in the company that I work for, and for my final thesis in my graduation. And yeah, I think when you put complexity in practice, it makes more sense. And yeah, like another thing is that I know that Gather and Keybase are new tools for everyone, but yeah, I really encourage everyone to just to keep up in what is happening on Keybase. And if you are a little bit lost, you can talk to Daniel, you can talk to me, or just post in the group. And I think there is like this ownership thing, and live the ride, So when you're here, I think it's just the best option to you for using all the resources and ways to get involved.
Great. Nice. Well, let's head into talking about what's going to be happening at this April 2021 Heartbeat specifically. So first is our organizer rules. So here's Lucas and I guess a couple days or weeks ago when we were doing a planning meeting. And if anybody is interested in co-organizing for a future Heartbeat, we can provide the calendar with the opportunities. It basically entails having 4 weekly meetings of 1 hour in the run-up to the last weekend of the month, and then optionally joining the live stream. So Lucas, it was really an honor and it was so fun to work with you this month, and you're doing epic on the live stream too. So what a
Mhm.
fun time. And I hope that you'll be around and co-organize with us in the
Right.
future too. Cool.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll.
As for the facilitators, we have Michaela Emsch and Keybase name Peltz1 down here. And Michaela is going to be giving some office hours and has a poster. And what was cool about this April 21 Heartbeat in specific was we had a lot of participant energy. And initially, we're like, oh, we have few facilitators signed up because I think in March we had like 5 or 6 facilitators who were doing different sessions. So there was like a lot of sessions. And then this month was actually an opportunity to have a lot more opportunities to make interactive sessions that were kind of we're hoping to have a bottom up facilitation energy, so to speak, because there's so many participants who have already stepped up to give a spotlight talk, which is what's going to happen on Saturday and on Sunday. So just like 5-minute talks that everyone who's around will hear. Participants who will be presenting a poster, as well as we started a welcoming. Oh, Peltzy one. Thank you, Michaela. Um, Showing up for the welcoming on Gather so that we're there for those who are coming for the first time. And also these one-to-one sessions, we have just a lot of fun stuff planned. So the main way that we're going to be interacting is on Gather. So maybe Lucas, want to give a like thought on Gather, or what would you say to somebody who's just starting to use Gather?
Yeah, for someone who is just starting using Gather, I just say don't panic. It's uh, at the beginning it can be a little bit different, but as you see, it's a very interesting platform. We can just, like we can get together and we can, get on private tables to speak to someone in private for a specific topic. And yeah, I just say my advice is just explore the platform and basically for the events we are here a little bit before the event starts and also after the event starts. So if you want to stay to join earlier or stay for a little bit after, just to talk and ask questions. We also have the tooling hours during the week. So yeah, if you are interested, just join us.
Cool. And you're always welcome to request a co-working space. We'll set something up so you can just hang out for a couple hours and co-work and talk. This is kind of a top-down view of the Gather space we're in. You can also hit that map on the bottom and see this, but you're going to spawn in the middle, and then there's going to be different things happening in different parts of the room, and also areas you can explore, like the bar as well as the cave. So just check out the different areas, play around, and then if you're interested in learning more about Gather, we have a lot of people who've gone quite deep into exploring how to do it and what it means and what it might be able to do. So get in touch with them and work with them because it's kind of a creative process. It's like building a video game. We'll kind of close out this introduction and head into the Jamboard interactive part with first just saying that the link to the program is in the calendar event that you have been invited to. It's also in the email, and we'll post it in the live chat. And that's going to be just the point of reference for this weekend heartbeat. And we're right here in the live stream. We're about to head into the Jamboard section. And then we'll have a few minutes break, and we'll meet back and gather at 10:15 Pacific. And that's where we're going to be. Lucas and I are going to be implementing the first of a type of session just where we want to have a welcoming session and an introductory discussion on complexity, hearing about where people are coming from. What's something that you would tell a participant who might be showing up for that, Lucas?
Just don't be afraid. If you want, like even if you don't, if you are starting complexity, you can just speak what your first thoughts and your interested, and yeah, here's a space for no judgment. So be free, be yeah to contribute and to talk.
Cool. Then we'll be having some participant spotlight talks. Michaela will then have her poster that's in the main room and also office hour. Uh, we'll then just hang out. So it's nothing required. People will be dropping in and leaving, different time zones, different scheduling constraints. It's all good. And then tomorrow on Sunday, we will again hang out and gather before the official start. So just drop by and have a cup of whatever drink you'd like. And then we'll again have this interactive welcome to Gather and Complexity weekend session. But because it's going to be more discussion oriented, it's going to be totally different. So come to one, come to both. It's all good. We're then going to do a little bit something that we're experimenting with in the cohort, which is the one-on-one sessions. We'll then have a little bit more spotlight talks or an opportunity for that, and then just close this heartbeat out because our weekend is in just a few weeks. And then also please do fill out the feedback form. Lastly, just if you want to support Complexity Weekends, it would be awesome. Your feedback and word of mouth recommendations are the best way for our community to grow. So we're going to close registration for the May 2021 cohort at the end of April. So the end of this month in 5 days or however long. So if people want to get on board for that, otherwise the weekend after May 21 is going to be November 2021. You can also support us via any mechanism that you'd like. and just know that we're volunteer run and our contributions basically go towards funding what we need to support at this point, which is like gather bandwidth, and then hopefully more and different things in the future. So that being said, let's go to the Jamboard. We'll give a couple of minutes just for everybody to catch up and open the Jamboard, and I will post that link in the chat right now. So the Jamboard is something that I think Monica Kang, one of our great facilitators, sort of introduced us to, and it's been awesome just to be able to use in this sort of live slash interactive way on live streams. So here we are with CW, Complexity Weekend of Practice, Heartbeat, April 24th, 25th, Jamboard session. So I'm seeing people join. And then on the top above the slide, you can hit the right arrow to get to the second slide. Second slide. What is your intention today? How are you showing up, or what do you want to see happen? So Lucas, maybe go for it, and I'll write down anything.
Wait, I got lost here.
Oh, no worries, no worries. We're on the second slide, and people will be a few seconds behind us, so we can just chill. But basically, we're on the second slide here. What is your intention today?
Okay, so my intention today is to meet people and just see what people are up to, why are they here, and apply complexity.
Cool. I think one thing I'm curious about is, or intending to do, would be experiment with this session that we had discussed. Warm up for the May weekend. Very nice. I agree with that. That's coming up in only a few weeks, and it is like a warm up. Nice. How might intention connect to, some complex systems idea? Like maybe the idea that complex systems have a goal, or cybernetics goal-directed systems. How do you have a self-correcting system, and what is the role of setting an intention? How can that be done in a way that actually works rather than just is neutral or maybe even counterproductive? Learning is one person's intention, since they only started learning complexity last month. Cool. That's really fun, and that's a great intention. Find teammates for July. So here's a team-based question, and just like we had in that graph in the slideshow, there's kind of the team forming process, and your development with the team is in the background, and we're there to check in on a monthly basis and hear from you, or be ready to support you and your team whenever the time comes for different phases of your team's progress. Enjoy the day. Find out how people interpret and work in and with complexity. Learn about Gather as a co-creative tool. So cool. There's stuff ranging from the technology to the people to personal journey and development to very team-oriented. Find a teammate. Great. Maybe the two of you could get a Gather room. Let's go to the third slide. So the third slide is, who are you and how did you discover complexity, or how did you come to be at this point in your complexity journey? So Lucas, what's maybe an anecdote or an important moment along the way that helped you or helps you understand how you discovered complexity?
So basically, I've always been a curious person. Like I always wanted to understand how things function deeply. Just uh, accept how it is. And like since I study international relations, we all know that the international system is complex. I got able to and to learn how the system have developed, the international system have developed, the society has evolved, and the influence that the past has in the present. And yeah, for me, it's like complexity is really about, understanding the whole context of it. And also in my professional background and being in a fintech, and we are always, launching new product and changing the organization structure. So once I started thinking in a complexity mindset, I really could, maybe take better actions and ideas. Yeah.
Cool. Let's look at what some of the answers so far are. So we have following curiosity, through biomimicry and systems innovation. So, and that's similar to kind of through design thinking and research, through organizational architecture while doing a design project. So there's a lot of people who are discovering complexity by being involved in systems thinking or in design, biomimicry areas, and then hearing something like, "Oh, when we say that the seashell is a fractal, or that there's some sort of, oh, sorry, just a little buzz, all good though. When we say that the seashell is a fractal, it's not just where that ends. The fractal is like a doorway into a little bit. Oh, sorry, I just was hearing a little buzz. Maybe if you can mute, Lucas. Oh yeah, no worries though. Yeah. But this is definitely a common thread here that people are learning about complexity by first being exposed to systems type thinking. Then in 1994, through epistemology at university, epistemology is the study of how we know things and how we learn things in philosophy, through my PhD supervisor, similar for me to a large extent. In 1999 in grad school, so here's a lot of people who may have been exposed 5, 10, 20 years ago in an academic setting, and then everyday life. So there's so many different ways. Wait, Lucas, could you mute when? Sorry.
Sorry.
Yeah, no worries. There's just so many ways that people are coming about it. And then also here's reading about self-organized criticality and using the Complexity Explorer website. So it's almost like we have academic, project-based, personal curiosity. These are all different doorways that people are coming about complexity, and we're all meeting in the middle in a way. And that's why we can all learn from somebody else's experience, because there's other poles out here as well that people could be approaching from. And then that tangle in the middle is kind of us, an academic background, learning about the everyday life perspective, and vice versa, because we all have a lot to learn and share. So let's go to 4. This is a fun slide that we wanted to sort of see what would happen with this month. There's a continuum from learning to applying. And people can put any sort of note or text they want wherever. But Lucas, do you want to first give a thought on this, or I'll give a thought on this learning to applying continuum. What do you think, though?
Yeah, I mean, for me, for example, it's easier to learn. We have access to a lot of things, and we have complexity weekend. But for me, the applying thing is the most difficult thing. Because I believe that it's hard to apply complexity when we are in an environment that people don't know about what is complexity. So yeah, my mindset for complexity is really about learning, and in the future, in being able to communicate and evangelize people to to having a complexity mindset.
Cool. So yeah, someone wrote while, I added and. Here's someone just wrote how for the applying. So these are all kind of questions. Complexity is a big topic. Okay, that much we all definitely agree on. And we all have different experiences with learning and with applying. And we could be asking, how can we learn best and how can we apply best as individuals and as teams? That's a question that we'll always be able to ask. So whether it's 1 month using complexity or thinking about it or being exposed to some topics, or whether it's 20 years, you can ask anyone who's been around that long. And these are the questions that they also come back to. And then while applying, it's related to, it's like learning by doing. So that's about how can we be learning the ideas along with applying. And also that reminds me of the video that we had with Sudebi and Probal, two awesome facilitators, and they talked about how they had entered in coming from like the entrepreneurship and design space and had to emphasize that everybody was a learner. And in organizational context, they'd have to convince people, hey, you think you have it figured out, but actually you need to be a learner in this area. And complexity is interesting because a lot of people think it's theoretical or abstract. So it actually attracts a lot of people who already feel like they're learners. And then we have this other contrasting, just like the other direction of the street on this freeway is, okay, complexity is about learning. That's so cool. How can we apply? Cool. I'd be interested in adding transmitting the complexity mindset. Cool. You just did, I guess. Feedback loop between the two. So cool. Let's go to slide 5. So slide 5. What is something you are curious or wondering about? So Lucas, just could be something you've for a long time or something you just thought about today, but what's something you're curious or wondering about today?
I mean, what I'm curious about is just how we manage how we manage better organizations. How we create more resilient organizations. Because with everything that is happening in the world, like technology and like everything with a lot of changes, it happens that like the impact of the of organizations are not as we wanted. And yeah, and what I wonder is how we lead organizations in a better way. And also, I mean, other things related, like how we increase inclusion and diversity in organizations, for example. And yeah, I, I would say this.
Cool. Organizational thinking and design are something where maybe in the past they'd be considered more separate areas. Um, but now it's almost like there's a broader sense that we're doing systems design, whether we like it or not. When you design organization or a governance structure or an economic structure, it is doing systems design because it changes how real people act and what they experience. So that makes me think about some of our facilitators from block science, like Jeff and Zargum and Danilo, about how in their process for thinking even about a cryptocurrency token, they take a systems design perspective and ask who the stakeholders are and what are the preferences and incentives. Nice. Okay, we got a ton of fun responses. Look at all these great questions. So, irony. From complexity to simple guidelines for practice. Right. Is it complexity theory? Is it simplicity theory? Is it irony theory? What is it going to be? Connections. How complexity affects economies and why some economies remain better than others. That's really related to the resilience you were bringing up, Lucas. Connecting different disciplines and applying the result in a practical manner. So definitely, how are we going to learn by doing? How the mindset changes happen, why, what triggers this, and how can this be sustained? Where is the team organization mindset or paradigm tipping point when the shift from linear thinking to complex thinking can happen? Mapping complex systems and knowing how to influence them more effectively. Wow, these are awesome, awesome questions. It's really related to this leverage point uh, idea. And I know that Meadows and other systems researchers talk about that leverage point idea, but this is like very organizational, almost like meta complexity. Like, let's just say that 0 out of 10 people in the room are thinking from a complexity perspective. So they're just charging straight ahead on the project. They're building an apartment or they're making an app or whatever it is, and 0 out of 10 stop to maybe ask, hey, what are the nonlinear consequences? Or how are we including the stakeholders in the conversation? Now, how is it different when 1 out of 10 or 5 or 9? And where is that point in different team sizes, different organizational structures? And then what does that shift look like? What precedes it? What happens during it? What's happening after it? And then just like this, how does it sustained? This is about the individual mindset. It's about what's happening with our own perspective, but this is an organizational question. So how do systems make a tipping point from one way of thinking to another? What's another question that's standing out to you, Lucas? Or we can go to 6.
Really, yeah, I would say that mapping complex systems and knowing how we influence them more effectively. Yeah.
Cool. Let's go to 6. What's a cool complexity concept and how would you like to teach it? So it's kind of phrased, I guess, in a funny way, like it's not that you know how to teach it, but how would you like to teach it? Or
Yeah.
maybe how would you like to teach or learn it so that we can, whatever the concept is. And then, um, so Lucas,
Yeah.
what's a cool concept and whether you're the expert on it or whether it's you just heard about it, how would you want to teach or learn it?
Yeah. So one of my favorite complex concepts about complexity are the leverage points that you already mentioned. Which when I learned about this, I mean, for me, it totally made sense. Which is basically about the iceberg model. In which we can have an impact in different levels. So if you want to have an impact, take actions in the tip of the iceberg, called the events. You're not solving the problem in the root of the problem. But yeah, what really triggers me and what really I'm really interested about is how to have deeper actions, and like have a impact on the structure and in the mindset of a system. And for me, it's very challenging.
Well, that's certainly something we're all learning about. How do you think that we could learn that best? How do we go from the metaphor of the iceberg or the metaphor of a lever, which is built into the word leverage, and then how do we teach that? Should we get a physical lever out? Should we get a physical iceberg out? What do you think the routes are that different learners and people could come at that concept from?
Yeah, basically, just giving real examples, and I can give a brief example right now. Like I'm basically studying about racism in Brazil, and like showing this concept of leverage point. I would say that we would solve racism problem by changing people's mindset, but it is very hard to change people's mindset in a whole society. And like we have other type of actions, which helps, but are not 100% effective. Like the problem will still exist. So yeah, so by basically bringing wicked problems, and just have an overview, a read this problem, and which people can just talk about this problem in their own mindset, in their own reality. I think it would be a great way to learn about leverage point or any other complexity concept.
Cool. Thanks for sharing it. Here says basic systems and complexity literacy for everyone in an iterative learning and teaching process. So that's awesome because that iteration is something that we're all going to have to be iterating on. And so we're iterating as learners and teachers. And international relations, interculturality, translation. That's kind of like thinking about international relationships plus multi-scale systems. That taps into our direct experience speaking with colleagues from different countries or speaking to colleagues and fellow participants who have really different backgrounds. And then you take that experience, add it to multi-scale systems, and you're starting to see how different regions that are different could get along, or maybe there's some other scaling factor that comes in and complicates things or makes things easier, but that's sort of a starting point to have the conversation with complexity and our experience built into it. Values and bias, cool. Um, One other thought I was having when you were talking about the leverage points, Lucas, was like, let's just say that you only had to add two numbers. You're just going to go for the regular adding them together on a piece of paper. But then if you knew that you had to add a million numbers, you would pull back and try to build a calculator or like a program to do it. So the way that you've framed wicked problems is they're the hard ones. So if it's an easy problem, then we're going to not even really have a need to look for a solution that just isn't straightforward. But it's the big issues where we have to pull back, because if we start adding the million numbers on paper, we're going to be wasting our time. So we have to pull back to what are called leverage points, because it's not going to work to just take a teaspoon and bail out the water for various topics. So it's really interesting way you framed the leverage point with the wicked problem, because it's the only way these solutions are going to be found. So let's go to 7. 7. How can we relate complexity science to our complex environments? What would be a thought you have on this? Oh, wait, you're muted, but continue.
Mm, yeah, that's like a very interesting thing, But I don't know, like for the social science or social systems, for example, you know, I think complex science just it can help we build a better society, uh, like a equal society for everyone, and uh, yeah, business systems, uh, like we said in the past, like building better, more resilient systems, business systems.
What's cool here is just randomly, moving stuff around. Nature
Yeah,
is really a big one. Ecology, exactly. Like we're in it, quite literally. And then sometimes it feels like some other stuff, not perfectly organized here, but things like business systems, lobbying, political landscapes, they feel like more mechanized or less natural, more artificial. But not only do these systems influence all systems, but it's just part of a natural outcome. It's an arising of nature and ecology. So they're all like nature. And how are we going to have not just the intellectual framework, but actually the communities of practice that can make that connection? Because if the lobbying group and the political landscape is not jiving with community groups, public performances, etc., it's going to be a discordant scenario. So how are we going to, as per this person's sticky here, how are we going to acknowledge and work with our uncertainty as individuals and as groups? These are really the challenges. Nice, great. Other comments coming in. Realign human mind to the environment nature. It feels we are disconnected or one against the other one. It would be great to take the main abstract complexity concepts and find them in real life systems, like a theoretical system to real life system map. That's a pretty cool idea too. So it's kind of like, it'd be like a translation table. Like if you go to phase change, we could find 5 real world phase changes that happened, like a financial one with a currency adoption, a language one, a cultural one, a climate change one. You can find all these phase changes. And then you could also go to the real world events and then go, okay, like tornado, it's self-organizing system, or it's going to be a tractor, or it's going to be a field of, mathematical concepts that get brought into play. So that's kind of a cool. What do you think about that, or anything else someone's written, Lucas?
Yeah, like for me, like the challenge of complexity is to interconnect all of those systems, And I think once we have this complex mindset, connecting, I don't know, education to business, like consider all those systems, I think we can get great outcomes of this connection.
Cool. Education. We can think of education as a complex system and shift the focus from teaching to learning as a focus. People are self-organizing. Okay, let's go to 8. So let's talk about a real system, which is our actual organization here. And here we're asking, what kind of participant behaviors and norms can help us make Complexity Weekend an amazing space for you? So there's sort of 2 sides here, things we do want to see and things we want to avoid. And so give any feedback, positive and negative feedback, whether you're thinking about cybernetics or feedback loops, causal loops, systems dynamics. We kind of need to know about both. Sometimes we only get negative or only positive feedback, and think about a car that was only getting positive or negative feedback. It wouldn't be able to be the best car it could be. And so similarly, it's something that we want to be steered by, like positive and negative in balance. And we can be having a very positive experience and still be aware of things that we do want to avoid. So I'll type it in the chat, and then Lucas, what's like a thought, and we'll add something to either or both sides.
So the things we want to see is participation, like I think when people participate and they speak, I think we are able to really, this interaction, we are able to get great outcomes, and that's the purpose of Complex Weekend. And yeah, just a open space, like it's already said there, open space with no judgment, and yeah, like people can just speak of whatever they believe, but always with respect.
Cool. Thanks for that. And let's look at some of these because these are really awesome responses. Thanks everyone who's in the Jamboard for these great responses. So things we do want to see with participation, openness, and cooperation, be building on each other. It's like we're in a conversation, we're going to be building on what the other person says. So you could write down an idea, but then be fully listening. And then maybe at the end of what the person is saying, leave a space. And then that's where you can actually be building on top of what they said rather than kind of building in the middle and then just intervening and taking it in a direction they didn't really go. Keeping it simple and real and listening. These are all really tied together. Having fun, return of experience. Yeah, having a blend of people who are returning and those who are here for the first time is awesome. Okay, now here's on the what we want to avoid. Biases, jargon, judgments being explained things to. So maybe that could be like, it's something that is a fact of our community, which is that we have many different backgrounds in complexity. So that's truly our strength and what our specialty is and what we want to cultivate. But that being said, somebody will often have a different understanding of an idea than someone else. But then you get kind of at the second level where you have okay, I think, well, Lucas, I think he has this background or not. So I'm going to explain this topic, but Lucas may have been studying that for longer than me. So I'm not going to explain to Lucas what X concept or Y concept is without actually engaging in dialogue. Like, oh, have you heard of this topic? And then if the person says no, it's helpful to be like, well, what angle have you come at this at, or how are you using it? And it makes it about the person who's learning a little bit less than the welcome to my TED talk. Transparent. Oh, that was on this side. Transparent, being yourself, no hidden agenda, right? People showing up here as individuals, and they're just representing and showing up for what they're there for. So find out and make it about the relationship rather than making it about like your idea that you've been slinging for a certain number of years. It's like, great, we'll have time for building on each other and for feedback from everybody when we have that as a norm. So let's go. Any last thoughts on that, Lucas, or we can go to 9?
We can follow. Yeah.
Yep. All right, let's go to 9. So here, sort of similar orange and blue shape, and it's just somebody who's looking for something or wanting to offer something to the community. So this is an asynchronous file. So those who are RSVP'd to the heartbeat, maybe they're not awake right now, but when they rewatch the live stream and then when they go to the Jamboard, they can add stuff and they can also contact people who are watching it live. So this is part of how we include participants from different time zones. And so people can post anything they want here. So Lucas, what would be a thought on either side while I'm asking this question in the chat?
So what I can give, as you can see, like I really like to be active. So for the community, I can give, like my knowledge about training and community and diverse perspectives. Like I really like to think in a diverse perspective. And let me see. Yeah, I can also exchange ideas about complexity in organizations, and which is a topic that I'm actively looking for. So anyone who is interested in complexity in organizations and startups, and yeah, I will be glad to be speaking to you because I'm also looking for people with this interest.
Cool. Cool. Nice little drawing happening, bridging differences, and hopefully what we want to allow the space for is these are like anonymous things. This is almost like something, this is like something that it's floating in the space, fun or ideas. People are looking for ideas and they're also, of course, able to give ideas. So there's some things that it's like anonymously showing up to the party with these things. Like I added organizer energy for you, Lucas. But then
Yeah.
there's also the ability to get in touch with somebody who is potentially looking for that kind of a connection specifically. So experience in design thinking process. And the
Right.
Keybase name is given here. And so this is like you're not giving more info out to the world or the internet or Google than literally just putting that in your biography. It's like saying, it's like a community notice board. Hey, I cut lawns and here is my phone number. This is kind of like a complexity person who's also, we would hope and cultivate a team player and a community player. And so who knows? Maybe sometimes this is going to be a really helpful connection and match between people who have different skills and different requirements. Nice. Xavier with the English French translation. The translation, that makes me think about how there's so many language specific works in complexity, but in other areas. Like there's books that are only written in English from complexity that might be very well understood amongst people who have been in the English speaking complexity world, but there's also probably classics and gems that are only written in other languages. So having something like a translation or an alignment of key terms for complexity would be really helpful. And yeah, well, Lucas, I mean, what do you think about that? Or where do you see an analogy maybe in some of your other thinking on organizations that are international?
Yeah, I think like international organization, events is really about, listening and uh, understanding. Like it's something that is not explained. There isn't a book explaining, like what you have to do. It's basically about observing, having a close eye for, what is happening, what are the main questions and doubts of people, and work on those issues, and yeah. So I would say listening and observing uh, the community, like everything that's going on Keybase, so you can get the picture of, the issues.
Cool. Let's go to slide 11. So we'll skip over slide 10, which is team members. If you want to put something there, feel free to, but the heartbeat is less about team formation and more just about chilling as a community, but we're there for you, or get in touch if you're looking for a team. Let's go to slide 11 though, which is how can complexity have impact in real world systems? So we'll spend just about 5 minutes here, and then that will bring us to the end of this live stream. Lucas, just great times, fun stuff, and I'm really enjoying this conversation. How do you
Yes.
take so how can and has complexity have impact in real world systems? What's something we can start this sort of slide off with? I'm sure we're going to get so many fun responses though.
Yeah. So we are basically going through a, like data world. Like everything's based on data. So I think complexity has to do with this. Like Jason, he would speak a lot about this. Uh, I don't know, but in general, I would say creating a better future. Like uh, you know, creating a better way of living, and yeah, in
Cool.
future would be like this.
Cool. Let's read some of these nice responses that are coming in. Okay, change of lens. So viewpoint and perspective. Education on wicked problems. So education is of course such a leverage point and such a upstream factor. Deep listening and synthesis, holism. So a lot of ways that we can think about the system and not the parts, not just try to fix the issue with sort of the micro, but align the micro with a little bit of a bigger picture. Help us thinking about what not to do. That sounds really interesting. And that's kind of related to this sense making, not shooting yourself in the foot. So maybe instead of complexity always coming in like a superhero and coming in with this amazing innovation or design hack, what about just thinking resiliently and simply and designing for reality? And maybe that just prevents failure. And so that's helping us think about what not to do, like design fragile incentive structures. But then when the incentive structure works, no one really questions it. But that's kind of complexity. So ecosystem thinking, that's really cool. Psychological therapy slash addiction interventions, taking into account the whole life of the person. So really there's so much domain specific work in complexity. So that's some of the images we have up here. And like with this neuron that's represented here, if we come from a discipline specific background, if all you know about is the dendrite and the electrical transmission on the dendrite, then depression or addiction is going to be a problem with dendrites. But on the other hand, if you only know about the social factors, then it's going to be all about the social factors. So how are we going to have that and perspective with, yes, there's dendrites and there's a society, and bring that together in a way that's taking into account the whole life of the person? So that's pretty cool. Uniting people. We're all feeling part of a complex system in which we have to take decisions. Complexity should help us in taking better informed decisions. Building on existing theories to change outlook. So that is kind of, again, related to that and. So instead of saying, well, we're going to have theory A, but now theory A is totally gone and we're going to have this totally different way of talking about theory B, how could we build on existing theories like systems theory? yeah, systems theory has so much to teach us. And then there's also innovations that can be described as more like complexity innovations because of what we've had access to computers in the last 50 years. So the systems theory was really insightful, and there's more to it that we're learning now. So that's very true. Reconnection to nature, we'll put it over there by the ants with a city. What's another thought or something that's standing out to you, Lucas? Or what would be like a last thought
Yeah.
as we sort of head out?
I really like the United People. We are part of a complex system, and yeah, like I really enjoy the most the human part of complexity. So every type of relation involved people relation. Uh, Environment. So yeah, I think complexity is really about considering more people. Like, and when we solve a problem, a complex problem, uh, we can by having a complex mindset, we are able to benefit more people. And yeah.
Awesome. Well, we're about 2 minutes left in the live stream. So here are just some general tips from Monica Kang, just on online collaboration. She's always reminding us just to have active listening, be curious and open, assume kindness, playing by our strengths, and over communicating and over listening. So, with that being said, the rest of the heartbeat is going to be on Gather. And so, if you're rewatching this, I hope that you feel included and you're welcome to come into Gather anytime. Even if you didn't make it on Saturday, April 24th, 2021, you're welcome to stop by tomorrow or just get in touch with us some other way because this Gather space is basically going to be always open. So you can just stop in there, you could work with teams, have fun in there. So, Lucas, any final comments before we head out to a little break and then into the gather?
Yeah, just final thought is everyone should have fun, and yeah, and enjoy this experience.
Great times.
Yes.
That's very well said. So, thanks to all the participants who made this Jamboard so great. And we will hope to see you all in Gather and continue the discussion. So, see you later. Bye.